The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
I'm CJ.
And I'm Carlos.
And it's a Friday, and again, we just never run out of fodder for the cannons.
No, we never do. It's always lots of fun, and of course, you know, Fall River at its best. Let's get right to the meat and potatoes of the day, well, of the week actually. You know, I love the headline that the Pravda put out there. Mayor Correa discussed tourism city funding during Azorian trip. My question is, Mr. Mayor, why would you discuss city funding during your trip to the Azores? And according to the article by the Pravda, oh, and by the way, for our viewers, I called the Fall River Herald schmooze the Pravda because it's far from truth. That he was invited by the Portuguese government. Now, that sounds to me like he may have needed clearance from the Department of State, because the Logan Act, which is very rarely utilized, is an act under federal code which restricts any elected individual, politician, agency, governmental body from negotiating or discussing issues with a foreign power. Now, the last time the Logan Act was thrown at somebody, where an indictment actually came out of it, was in 1803. Now, it has been used since then, and it was used most recently by Ronald Reagan against a sitting senator. So it's very interesting to see how once again in Fall River we find that, guess what? The law applies to everybody else, but it doesn't apply to me because I'm elected in Fall River. I don't know, Chip, what do you think?
Well, you know, I mean, you know, the whole premise of this trip is just, I mean, look, well, you know what I always say, you know, if you're going to urinate on my head, at least extend me to courtesy and not trying to convince me it's raining. I mean, you're going to discuss the city funding, as you said. What are you going to discuss with a foreign country about local spending? Are we trying to beg some money from them like we do from the state and the feds? What are you going to discuss? I'd like some particulars on that. And besides that, it's actually, as you said, illegal for an official to negotiate with a foreign country without governmental permission. And then we're going to discuss tourism. Really? I mean, I think that tourism to the Azores is one way. Most of the people in this area go to the Azores, and I have a man next to me that goes there on occasion. And most of the people that come here from the Azores stay. I mean, all we got to look is at the population of the city. I mean, these things are just, listen, I mean, all we got to do is look over the line into Rhode Island and look at what's going on with Gina Raimondo now. She went out to California, and they've exposed the fact that she went out there for a fundraiser.
Yeah, of course.
And she spent $700 on a manicure and a haircut or whatever, a hairdo. Or,
hey, that was important. She had to look good.
and then we see what happened to this elected representative there, and we see that now he's working for a company that really doesn't exist, a nonprofit taxpayer company that supposedly the CEO that they said was the president of this nonprofit hasn't been involved in it since she was an intern in 2003. And half of the board of directors have disavowed any knowledge of this company. So this is politics again. You know, they stick their head so deep in the trough, and they have such a tremendous disdain for the people because nobody ever calls them on it. But times are changing. You know, Donald Trump, people are calling people on things. This is the reason. People are upset. They're beginning to do what we said Many years ago when we started this show, they're following the money. And we find out that these politicians are not helping their localities. What is Gina Raimondo doing in California? There are no, what is she doing? Talking about developing Rhode Island? There's no developers in Rhode Island?
Well, no, she went there because it's cooler here and it's warmer there. It's warmer and cooler.
But look, they've always got an excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's our mayor's excuse. He discussed tourism, really, and city funding in the Azores. Why don't you discuss city funding in front of the city council? And why don't you discuss how you're going to manage to fund the gap you left by eliminating the trash collection fee? Why don't you discuss city numbers where it belongs, in front of our city council?
Hey, how about the fact that he's violating his own promise to make sure he meets net school spending?
Yeah.
He did that with a 3% budget cut. You know, this is the show of shows, and he's making every possible mistake right out of the book that he can make. And he still has his group of, devoted, followers that can't see the forest. They can't even see the trees, never mind the forest. And they just don't understand that no matter what you tell them, it's all wrong. You're wrong.
And let me add this. I mean, the mistake was done. The way this whole thing probably is going to unfold, because this is just the beginning, the way this all going to unfold. The positive thing out of this is that he had a chance to see with his own eyes what is a clean city. Okay? Because you watch pictures on YouTube, just go Ponte Delgado on YouTube and look for it. All the sidewalks are made by hand with stone, has no holes on. You won't find one hole on.
No potholes?
No potholes. All stone, made by hand. You won't see a napkin flying on the sidewalk. You won't see a trash bag or a trash barrel in the sidewalk, because that's attractive to the, that's one thing that the tourism looks at. And if you have trash, every building has their own recipient inside the building. So it's like you're putting ladders on a mailbox. That's how you throw your trash in Ponte Delgado, and the owner of the building takes care of that trash. Okay? So it's good. The positive thing is, I hope that he had the eyes looking around. Since that we're going to talk about tourism, let's learn with somebody that, lives with tourism every day.
Hey, Carlos, do they have dirty needles on the streets?
No, they don't.
Oh, well, then that's it.
No,
Fall Rivers out of the run.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because when it's somebody that's going to move in, they're not going to put it on where the tourism is going to be.
That's right.
They're going to put it in an area, okay, that the tourism don't go there. And that's the difference, okay? But in here, it's all become a rights movement, because I'm this color, that's why you don't want me here. In Portugal, they don't care about that. And matter of fact, we don't have problem. You are never heard about racism in Portugal. You are never heard about it, because that's the way the things run over there.
Well, that's because this is used as a divide and conquer strategy by politicians. This is what's happened to America. They've divided it again. America was once known as a melting pot, where everybody who came here became an American. But they didn't forget their roots. They remembered that if they were from Portugal or France or any other country. But they remembered that they were Americans. Even first-generation Americans, they were proud to come to this country. They came here for a better life, and they did. My grandparents were, on both sides, were immigrants, and both of my parents were born here. My mother went back as an infant to her mother's country and father's country, and then came back when she was 13. But the fact is, my father never called himself Portuguese. My father fought in the Second World War, was an American, was a proud American of Portuguese descent. You didn't hear this. We are a separate subgroup. And, you know, this is one of the problems, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because ironically, I brought this. This was a speech made on September 10th, 1895, by Theodore Roosevelt, who became the President of the United States, and to me, one of our greatest presidents. And this is what he said, and amazingly enough, it really holds true today. And listen very closely. There is no room in this country for hyphenated Americanism. When I refer to hyphenated Americans, I do not refer to naturalized Americans. Some of the very best Americans I have ever known were naturalized Americans, Americans born abroad. But a hyphenated American is not an American at all. This is just as true of the man who puts native before the hyphen as of a man who puts German, Irish, English, or French before the hyphen. Americanism is a matter of spirit and of soul. Our allegiance must purely be to the United States. We must unsparingly condemn any man who holds any other allegiance, but if he is heartily and singly loyal to this republic, then no matter where he was born, he is just as good an American as anyone else. The one absolutely certain way of bringing this nation to ruin, of preventing all possibility of its continuing to be a nation at all, would be to permit it to become a tangle of squabbling nationalities, an intricate knot of German Americans, Irish Americans, English Americans, French Americans, or any other type, each preserving its separate nationality, each at heart feeling more sympathy with that nationality than with the other citizens of the American Republic. The men who do not become Americans and nothing else are hyphenated Americans. There ought to be no room in this country. The man who calls himself an American citizen and who yet shows by his actions that he is primarily a citizen of a foreign land plays a thoroughly mischievous part in the life of our body politic. He has no place here, and the sooner he returns to the land which he feels his real heart allegiance, the better off for the good of every American. I will reiterate that one sentence. There's absolutely, the one absolutely certain way of bringing this nation to ruin, of preventing all possibility of its continuing to be a nation, is to make this a tangle of squabbling nationalities, and that's what we've done in the United States. In 1895, Theodore Roosevelt said, you come here, you're an American, you respect your roots, and look what we've done now. Divide and conquer. This is a political trick to divide the nation. And that's what they've done. Because the smaller the group, every group becomes a voting bloc. And we see this. This is wrong. And I'll tell you what, that was my commentary for the week. But the fact is, as I said, you know, people say, what nationality are you all the time? And I say, I'm an American. I was born here. So was my father. And as I said, my grandparents weren't born here. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, they considered themselves, and I saw it. They were proud to be Americans. They were proud. You know, my grandfather came here, and the only job he could get on my father's side was driving a horse-drawn swill truck in Maine. But it was a job. You know, and they built their family. They grew their families. They taught their children to love this country. My father fought for this country. His brother fought for this country, and it really upsets me. And it's difficult not to be very, very upset when you see what this country has become. We're going back into the wrong direction, and they use it under the guise of this myth of, oh yes, you've got to keep your ethnicity. Well, you're a Portuguese American, and but you know the difference between you're living in America. This is where your loyalty should lie. And to make yourself a group within a country, and then we complain about ISIS. That's what they're doing. They're trying to create an Islamic state, and we do the same thing with all these nationalities, break them up by race, by ethnicity, and that's not what we should be doing. We should be looking at this as we're all Americans, and as you said, in Portugal it's different, in Europe it's different.
And we cannot compare. Sanders will be a perfect president for Portugal. You will go there, you will be like a king in Portugal. But in reality, that doesn't work in America. But with that being said, and I said this before, I'm very proud of America. I have, for every Portuguese flag that I displayed 1,000 American flags. Because, and I have the Portuguese flag, I'm Portuguese, but I choose to be American.
Yeah.
So if it was my choice, I put America, since I'm here, first in Portugal. Because I say this to everybody. If Portugal was good to me and would give it to me what America gives me, I won't be here. I would be in Portugal. So if this is the country that's given me the opportunity to be who I am, to do what I do, to have what I have to kiss that flag.
Well, that's a good thing, Carlos. And Chip and I have been saying this for a long time, and some say it's racist, whatever. I tell everyone I'm not racist. I hate everyone equally. It's that simple. But we got to move on because we're running out of time, and we got a couple other things to do. I want to real quickly address another one in the Pravda call that Mike Moran wrote, imagining the Fall River Government Center Correspondents Dinner. Some of these quotes are amazing, and two that really speak volumes. You know the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Apparently, when it comes to basic city services, Jazel says, if it ain't broke, privatize it. He's a trip, this guy. Now, but you need more source material, just pick anything. And he's right. You've got purple bags, trash fees, Braga Bridge, 30 years under construction over there. But I think one of the biggest things that he did, and it kind of, one way or the other, I don't know how you want to take it, but he said, remember the old gang of recallers? Maybe they should hold a grand reunion at Government Center Correspondents Dinner and each take a few minutes at the podium. Only this time, I hope the material is as funny as it was when they speak at Citizens Input. Are you serious? I mean, this is the problem we have. Even our media doesn't understand that the citizens are trying to get a message across. Now, that's a comical article, so I'm not going to criticize it. But when our politicians sit there and publicly say that I don't have time to listen to what the citizens tell me, I've got to prepare for the meeting. This should speak volumes to you, the voter, and you, the viewer, that these people don't care. All of them, all 9, they don't have time. But again, well, it's what it is in Fall River, and everyone here just says, "Hey, what can we do about it?" There's nothing.
There's comedy, there's comedy, there's satire, and there's mean-spirited satirical, biting satire, and I disagree with the fact that this is innocuous, because it's not. You're basically making fun of what these people have to say. And whether you agree or disagree with what they have to say, they have a right to say it.
That's right.
What this nation was built on. And he's poking fun at them, and especially coming from somebody like Mike Moran, who spent half his life on the radio preaching political doctrine and taking a side that some people agreed with, but some people didn't agree with. But regardless of whether you agreed or disagreed, you don't disparage the individual.
Correct.
He basically called them stupid in a roundabout satirical way, and unfortunately, if you're going to call someone stupid, have enough courage to call them stupid. And with that, I'm not even going to comment on this article anymore, because it's disgusting.
Yep. Well, another thing that our voters in Fall River have a great thing to look for because of voter reform. Children can now register at 16 and 17 years old to vote. It's called early registration. But we're going to now start having early voting in Fall River and throughout the state. And early voting is going to start the week of October 24th through November 7th. and it will be held from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Government Center. Now, they still haven't worked out the logistics, but this way they can cut down the number of absentee ballots. But now, for another great headline, officials say Fall River is open for business, and Fall River isn't, so let's get real. You know, they get a Sonic, they get a couple of things going, and, you know, Somerset is kind of like on the move. And you know what the funny part about it is? They got people going there. Why? No TIFs. Uh-oh, I swore. I said no TIFs.
Yeah.
You know, they're opening these businesses. They're not giving them huge TIFs. They're not giving them any TIFs, it appears. And businesses are striving to go to Somerset instead of Fall River. Why? Because Somerset is in just as bad financially. They're not worse. They will be shortly, as Fall River is. So why are they striving to go there as opposed to Fall River? Oh, let's see.
The people have money?
People have money. Okay, people work there. There's an economic drive. They're not creating public housing. You don't hear about another housing project opening up. You don't hear about another market rate housing facility opening up that then becomes Section 8. So maybe the Office of Economic Destruction should go across the bridge and talk to the people in Somerset and say, what are you doing right that we're doing wrong? Because guess what? That speaks volumes to Fall River.
Yeah. What are you doing right is you built a community that has taxpayers.
Right.
The majority of houses, you know, they have a far greater percentage of housing, taxable housing, than we do, even though they're smaller. You look at the percentages. People own houses over there. They have jobs. They work. Most of them are transplants from Fall River. And this is the key. You know, we keep saying it again and again. Look, there's no secret to this formula. Businesses don't go to communities that people don't have any money to buy their products. I mean, I don't know. Rob Million has been in charge of the Chamber of Commerce for years, and I don't know. He may have taken business law, but he sure as hell didn't take economics, because he can't figure this out. He keeps talking about all these magic fixes in a community that has almost 25% of its people living below the poverty level. We have the lowest household income. So if you were a business like Sonic, we have much higher crime. If you had Seekonk or Swansea or even Taunton, which is a third of the size of Fall River, you drive down Route 140 and 44, all you see is restaurants. Why? It's because people have more money there.
You also see department stores and everything else.
Exactly. Just like you used to in Fall River.
Right.
When people had jobs, when we had the Flint with a store on every corner and a restaurant on every corner. What was the difference in that equation? People had jobs. People worked at Beetle Plastics and in Shelburne Shirt and stuff. And when those jobs left, the city made no attempt to retool this city's economy and keep people here. They just said, bye-bye, nothing we can do, let's try to bring in, more bull, and they failed dismally, and then you wonder why companies don't come here and open up. You don't need a TIF if you know you're going to make tons of money. Newton doesn't give out TIFs, and they got 10,000 more businesses than Fall River, and they've got 2,000 less people. Why? Well, the average income in Newton is $113,000 a year, not 31 like it is in Fall River.
I think these people lost a good opportunity to travel for 4 days to Azores.
That's right.
And make a few questions there, how they make it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's I'll tell you how they make it, and I'm going to tell you exactly how. It's called the Community Preservation Act. Okay, all your friends, all your friends in your private industry, yep, all your friends in private industry get to take the hard-earned tax dollars out of the public's pocket and gets to put a new roof on a private for-profit company, the Academica Club. Their food may be wonderful, but they're still a private club.
And they've been making a great business for years.
That's right.
And their bar, I'd love to see how much their bar makes. I'd like to see, and the fact is that, look, Community Preservation Act has to go.
It does. There's no question about
It has
it.
to go. And the people get ready because we're coming. And Carlos is with us.
Oh.
Carlos is with us.
You know, something makes no sense. We have a building that belongs to the taxpayers of Fall River. It's going to be condemned, it's going to be put down because of a roof. And we, taxpayers, going to pay a roof for a private company. Nothing against them. They're doing the right thing applying for. I blame is the board that is giving this money away. That's my money.
Yeah, and my money and CJ's money and all the taxpayers' money. It's everybody's
that
money.
pays tax on the city.
Yeah, but don't forget, you've got a city councilor who turns around and she violates 268A, and she goes to push for money because the Flint got a water pad in their new park, which the state paid for. The city didn't pay for it. The city taxpayers didn't pay for it. So she had to go running to make sure she got one for Kennedy Park. And then you had Niagara making sure they got one for their park. So everyone's got it. Now, who's paying for the water?
And that's why I think that's wrong to mix one thing with the other.
That's right.
And people say why I don't run for office. If I'm holding a neighborhood association, I'm not going to run for office. If I do run for office, I have to drop my association because I cannot serve two gods at the same time. I cannot be in two places at the same time. That's what's wrong with this picture.
I know.
Look, this has to go. All we've seen is money going to special interest groups and well-connected people. I mean, this is a travesty. The Academical Club, and I've eaten at the Academical Club. I like it, but the fact is it's a private business. It's a private business.
So is the Abbey Grill.
And the Abbey Grill and all these other things. And look, we've spent, how much have they spent already on parks? We spent millions. We can't keep our fire department to full complement. They continue to raise taxes, and they take these tax dollars, and they do things like this. Well, you know something? Let them run a fundraiser. Let them do something. You know, this has become a slush fund for connected people.
That's right.
And that's all it is. Because look at, I mean, Carlos, not because he's sitting next to me, but there's one of the greatest examples of the unfairness and how political this thing has become, where we have a building that needs a roof that's owned by the taxpayers, and we can't get money for that. This is the second year in a row. But they're going to give a private business, and they're going to put a roof on it, but they're going to spend $283,000 on the Bank Street Armory, which, okay. But the fact
Needs a lot
is,
more work than that.
But look, this was a tax that they lied to the public about. They said this was about maintaining and preserving historic buildings and stuff like. They spun some of the greatest mythology I ever heard when this thing got sold. They sold the taxpayers a bill of goods. I was opposed to it from the get-go, because I know what happens when you give the government money and you give them a slush fund. This is what happens. Gina Raimondo went to California for a fundraiser. You think she went there because she's not going to owe those people? She got a trip to California. This is what politicians do. Community preservation is not, let's let the taxpayers preserve their own community. Let's preserve our community by making it safe, by keeping firefighters on a job and police officers on a job, by getting our trash picked up, and put a little bit of our tax money back in your pocket. Let me choose if I want to donate to a park that I don't use.
Hey, and you know, and with that, we're closing out the day and the week. And by the way, happy Mother's Day, Ma. I didn't forget you. It's coming up on Sunday. All your moms out there currently with us and have passed, thanks for everything you've done for all your children. And thanks for everything you've done for me, Ma.
And stay angry, especially about the CPA.